Hey guys, it's Cozy again. Today in this video, we're going to be diving into the topic of Marxism, and more so if and how it has taken control of portions of our society. There is a lot of fear-mongering, especially in the right-wing community, about how Marxism is poisoning our youth, especially in big institutions like colleges. What we will find out today is what Marxism actually is, not the radical version that is usually pushed to us on mainstream platforms. Also, what is their plight and what do they want to enact on society? And finally, is it actually spreading throughout the country and is there danger to that? Well, let's get into it. I hope you enjoy and make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. So, the direct definition of Marxism is an economic and philosophical movement created by the German author Karl Marx and his partner Friedrich Engels. It was named after the former in Marxism. What Marxism entails is outlined in the Communist Manifesto, which outlines what he wanted to do to change the current capitalistic system that was prominent and spreading at the time in Europe in the late 1800s. Okay, so with that context, what Marxism is pushing for is a new economic and political system called socialism, which would change the ownership of property and labor from private and individual ownership to public and government ownership. What this means is that everything the society produces is a social product, and everyone in that society who contributes to the production of a good is entitled to a fair share of that good and its production. So the big picture is, the society as a whole has ownership of everything that society produces, with no real hierarchy of power. This is in direct conflict with the system at the time in capitalism, which was based around private ownership and created a hierarchy of power where in theory hard work and innovation would get you higher on the power ladder. This movement was beloved by many at the time because of the growing feeling that the rich at the time, coined as the bourgeoisie, were taking complete advantage of the poor workers, completely exploiting the system that they created. The system at the time was completely against reform and didn't seem to be ready for any kind of change. What this led to was the supporters of Marxism saw the only viable option as a complete system overhaul, and the method to do this was revolution. To make a long story short, because this isn't a video about Russia, World War I, along with extreme famine and poverty, this would end up taking place, creating the Soviet Union, the first major empire ran by communism. Now, as you probably know, this did not work how Marx or even Lenin, who was in charge of the revolution, intended. There is a good argument that this wasn't because of a failure of socialism, but because of human corruption spearheaded by a fascist dictator in Joseph Stalin. Now, an aspect I left out is that socialism is not the end goal of Marxist theory. Socialism is merely a bridge period that leads to the real system, which is communism. Communism is what the Soviet Union considered their economic system. Now, what is communism? Communism is similar to socialism, but is taking it the next step, making property, currency, and a class system obsolete, essentially creating a harmonious society where everything is equally divided and free for the citizens of the society. Now, is this what happened? No. Is it possible? That's kind of what Marxists of today are arguing. Modern Marxists, commonly known in the Western world as neo-Marxists, believe in the main principles of the original theory, only with some more modern takes on the idea, in the hopes of creating a more advanced or accessible system of Marxism. Modern Marxists agree with a lot of modern liberal ideals, especially the ones that are involved with personal freedom, including freedom of speech, assembly, production, press, and movement. Where neo-Marxists split from liberals is that liberals feel capitalism has provided these freedoms, where neo-Marxists think the connection between these freedoms and capitalism are vague, and could be provided from a modern Marxist system. The Marxists' main problems with our modern system is similar to orthodox Marxism, just how we are dealing with it today. The big problem is the exploitation of the working class majority, along with the idea that this exploitation cannot continue and will erode our society at some point. This goes into the idea of late-stage capitalism, where the neo-Marxists align with this ideology heavily. Another problem they want to address is how labor is valued today, where they think that everyday workers' labor is extremely undervalued and seems to be pushed lower and lower every year, seemingly coming to a breaking point. The last thing they want to address is economic surplus and redistribution of wealth and goods. As of now, we have a huge surplus of goods that go to waste or are price gouged to the extent that it's incredibly hard for the working class to get their hands on these goods that they contribute to creating for the society. In the redistribution of wealth to the lower classes, It's no argument that right now the goods and profits of labor goes directly to the upper class while leaving the scraps to the working class, who is hugely responsible for the creation of those profits and goods. Now, is Marxism spreading in our society today? Yes, it is. And yes, it is mainly being taught as a valid viewpoint at universities. Now, what you should be asking is why, because the why will give you better insight on if we should be frightened by it, should stop it, or if we should even care at all. The reason why comes from the education in our current economic system that these students are taking in and spreading to other young college-age communities. This education outlines the sad truth of our current system, where mostly everyone is going to be poor and working their entire life for the chance to just not struggle, with the best case scenario getting a degree, and yes, not struggling, but only being put right in the middle class that is objectively shrinking due to this system. This also shows them the path the system is going, and that path only shows the system to get worse and make living in it harder and harder for the non-rich. When you are given that information, it's very hard to see that system with any benefit of the doubt, due to the emotional response you are going to be going through with all the fear, loss, and uncertainty that will cause. With all these feelings, it's easy to want to do a full reset with a utopian system that seems to solve all the problems of today, especially when the system hasn't really been worked out before, therefore not having any problems that you can see due to its not being attempted and seen through. This can create an idealistic version of the new system and, more importantly, a demonized view of the current one that seems either too far from saving or not worth saving in general. So a good analogy is if you have an old car that doesn't start often and has left you stranded constantly, and your option is to either repair that car with immense funds or use those same funds to just buy a new but untested car. In my opinion, the real answer is that old car was not maintained correctly and was left to rot away, causing it to seem like a bad car, or it might be the most reliable given the correct care. This new generation of Marxists has seen the worst this system can offer, therefore writing it off. In my opinion, the system is not something to be written off. Yes, it has gotten to a bad point, maybe even a breaking point, but that breaking point shouldn't be a catalyst for revolution, but for reform. I'm not going to get into a full breakdown of what my plan would be, but what I'm saying is I don't think Marxism is the way, and if the system ever got put into practice in our society, I think these neo-Marxists would also see that. Alright, now that we got through that, let's get into the actual question. Is Marxism spreading? Yes, it is. More so culturally, though politically you can say it's spreading with more and more people being more aware and comfortable with socialism and its ideas, like the ones Kamala Harris is advocating for. With that said, her new ideals are nowhere near full-blown Marxist theory and are just more leaned into a left economic system. Now, is this something we should be worried about, like all the right-wing media will stress to you? In my opinion, definitely not. In the words of Ronald Reagan, democracy can take it. Our system and beliefs are built on the idea of, well, new ideas and ways to make things better in our system. I just feel that they have become too radical. It's also not even possible to take place how the Marxists want it unless you subscribe to the idea that the entire Democratic Party are all secret communists trying to turn the country red from the inside out. It just comes down to political strategy and fear-mongering. I doubt the people saying these things even believe it themselves. So no, this isn't something you should be scared of. Our country isn't going to go communist anytime in the foreseeable future. The worst this will do is cause the Democrats to take more social democratic policies seriously, like the policies you see in Europe. And honestly, I think that's not a bad thing if we are able to get the economy running fine, unlike how we are right now, and keep getting taxes to a reasonable amount. It might do our country some good in the short and long term. Basically, I think the Marxist movement is fine and not something to be worried about, and we shouldn't be so quick to demonize opposing groups for sharing ideas that are different from ours. Except for the revolution types. A lot of Marxists just don't like how the country looks today and think they can solve a lot of problems with new ideas and a fresh system, and in reality they may be wrong or right, but that in and of itself isn't a bad thing, and we should encourage and welcome it. Well, I hope you guys liked the video. Make sure to do all the things. Tell me what you liked, hated, or thought was stupid about the video, and I'll have another one shortly. Thank you and good night.